the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner on Saturday night, where gunshots were fired near the main security screening area at the Washington Hilton Hotel, has set the internet ablaze. Not just because of the attack itself, but because of how Melania Trump reacted the moment bullets started flying. The First Lady has been both teased and praised online for her reaction to the shooting, as she appeared to put her own well-being before Donald Trump's as she quickly reacted to the attack. So let's break down exactly what happened inside that ballroom, how Melania responded, and why the internet can't stop talking about it. This was the first White House Correspondents' Dinner Trump attended as a sitting president. Think about that for a second. Trump ended a long boycott of the event, which has hosted sitting presidents for over 100 years. His earlier boycott followed a high-profile roasting by then-President Obama over the birther conspiracy. When Trump skipped the event in 2017, he became the first sitting president not to attend since 1981, when Ronald Reagan missed it because he was still recovering from the gunshot wound he suffered in an assassination attempt a few weeks earlier. So for years, Trump stayed away. The move marks a dramatic end to a years-long boycott of the event, which the president has historically dismissed as a fake news gathering. And now, the very first time he decides to show up as president, a gunman charges the building. The evening of April 25, 2026, started the way these things normally do. The dinner was underway, and Trump, the First Lady, and other dignitaries were sitting at the main table, and White House Correspondents Association President Weijia Jiang was chatting with the dinner's host, Oz Perlman, when some attendees said they heard several loud bangs shortly after 8:30 p.m. Numerous other top Trump administration officials were at the event, including Vice President J.D. Vance, FBI Director Kash Patel, and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. For the first time in years, the WHCD did not feature a comedian, opting instead for mentalist Oz Perlman after last year's headliner was dropped under pressure from Trump allies. So Trump was there, Melania was there, the vice president was there, half the cabinet was there. Hundreds of journalists, celebrities, and politicians packed that basement ballroom at the Washington Hilton. And then at approximately 8:40 p.m., everything changed. At approximately 8:40 p.m. EDT, the suspect was confronted by security near the main magnetometer screening area of the Washington Hilton while dinner was being served inside the main ballroom. He ran past the security checkpoint and fired at least one shot. He was chased and subsequently apprehended. CNN anchor Wolf Blitzer, who was outside the main ballroom at the time, reported being only a few feet away from the gunman when the shots were fired. Blitzer described the shooter as firing what appeared to be a very serious weapon, at least 6 times before being tackled and taken to the ground by police. Blitzer was ushered to safety in a nearby restroom by officers. Inside the ballroom, the scene turned to pandemonium. Chaos erupted at the White House Correspondents' Dinner when gunshots were heard, and President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump were rushed out of the Washington Hilton ballroom Saturday night. Video from inside the event showed attendees diving under tables and taking cover as panic spread through the room. In a chaotic scene that unfolded inside the Washington Hilton Hotel ballroom, officers in tactical gear with long guns jumped over tables, brandishing their weapons, as the president and other dignitaries, such as Vice President J.D. Vance, were rushed from the stage. And this is where the moment that broke the internet happened, the moment Melania reacted. Donald Trump has revealed the chilling moment Melania Trump realized something was terribly wrong, as gunshots rang out during the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Speaking at a press briefing in the West Wing, less than an hour after the incident, the president described the confusion and fear that unfolded inside the Washington Hilton ballroom. "It's always shocking when something like this happens," he said, recalling how the couple were seated side by side when the first noise was heard. "The First Lady on my right, and I heard a noise. I kinda thought it was a tray going down." Trump heard a noise and thought it was a dropped tray. But Melania? Trump said Melania was very cognizant, I think, of what happened. "I think she knew immediately what happened. She was saying, 'That's a bad noise.'" Those 2 words, bad noise, cut through everything. While the president was still processing what he heard, Melania had already identified the threat, and she didn't wait. Gunfire is then heard, with Melania quickly reacting by ducking under the table. before the Secret Service even reaches her 79-year-old husband. The rest of the attendees then duck before the first couple, along with J.D. Vance, are quickly rushed off stage. Social media users quickly shared their thoughts on the situation, pointing out how fast the 56-year-old ducked under the table. The video footage tells the story better than words ever could. In one video, Melania and Donald Trump could be seen enjoying a performance by mentalist Oz Perlman, while they were sitting on stage alongside Caroline Leavitt and J.D. Vance. One moment, everyone is relaxed, enjoying dinner. Then the bangs. And Melania moves. Immediately, decisively, without a second of hesitation, straight under that table. Video from inside the ballroom shows the President, First Lady, and Vice President J.D. Vance ducking under their table on stage as the shots were fired. Within moments, Secret Service agents rushed in, with the elite counter-assault team storming the stage in tactical gear, weapons drawn. Guests watched in shock as security swept through the room, moving quickly to secure senior officials. Footage shows agents reaching the president and pulling him to safety, with Trump briefly appearing to slip as he was ushered away before regaining his footing. Within seconds, the atmosphere inside the packed dining room shifted dramatically as several shots rang out, sending guests scrambling under tables for cover. While some attendees ducked immediately, others hesitated, trying to make sense of the sound. It was a gun, and some people understood that pretty quickly and other people didn't, Trump said. Melania was one of the ones who understood pretty quickly. She didn't freeze. She didn't look around confused. She moved before professional protection agents could even close the distance. And that particular detail, that the First Lady ducked before the Secret Service got to her, is what sent the whole thing viral. The internet had a lot to say. Melania ducked before the Secret Service was close. She saved herself. One Facebook user said, as another observed, "See how fast Melanie hides under the table. She leaves him there." "Did you see Melania get under that table quick, fast, and in a hurry?" wrote another user. Melania said bye and ducked out, joked a fifth, with a final user concluding, "Melania doesn't need to be told twice." But behind the jokes and the memes lies something that people couldn't help but notice. This was the third time in less than 2 years that Melania Trump was confronting the possibility that her husband might be killed. For the third time in less than 2 years, President Donald Trump found himself under the threat of gunfire. This time, the Washington press corps was in the room. Trump survived an assassination attempt during a July 2024 campaign rally in Pennsylvania. A few months later, a man tried to assassinate Trump while he was golfing at his golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida. And now this at a dinner, surrounded by journalists and dignitaries, in one of the most heavily secured venues in Washington. So when Trump stood at the podium at the White House briefing room later that night, flanked by his top officials, and said those words about Melania, there was a weight to it that transcended politics. President Donald Trump acknowledged the shooting incident at the White House Correspondents' Dinner on Saturday was a traumatic experience for First Lady Melania Trump. The president made his remarks to members of the press not long after a shooting incident at the Washington Hilton Hotel. Flanked by government officials, Trump said, "I want to thank the First Lady. That was a rather traumatic experience for her. There was a lot of action taking place up there very quickly. But again, the response time was really incredible." Video footage caught the moment several loud booms were heard as the President and First Lady were in their seats on stage at the event. Moments later, they appeared to realize something was happening as the First Lady looked across the room, and U.S. Secret Service agents surrounded she and her husband. There's something deeply revealing about the way Melania handled that moment. Trump himself acknowledged that he was still trying to figure out what was happening, still processing whether it was a tray or something worse. He later admitted, "I was watching to see what was happening. Probably should have gotten down even faster." Meanwhile, Melania was already under the table, already safe, already ahead of the threat. While the internet dissected Melania's reaction frame by frame, law enforcement was moving at breakneck speed to piece together who had just attacked the most protected dinner in America. The suspected gunman was identified as Cole Allen, 31, of Torrance, California. According to a law enforcement briefing to Fox News Digital, the man suspected of opening fire at the White House Correspondents Association dinner on Saturday night worked as a teacher and video game developer from Southern California, according to public records. According to his LinkedIn profile, Allen graduated from the California Institute of Technology in 2017 with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, a Caltech graduate, a teacher. A LinkedIn profile matching Allen's name and photo described him as a part-time teacher at C2 Education, a test prep and tutoring company. C2 named Allen the company's Teacher of the Month in December 2024, according to social media posts from the company. Independent game developer by experience, teacher by birth. This was not some faceless, nameless figure. This was a man with a degree from one of the most prestigious universities in the country, a man who tutored students and developed video games. And yet, on the evening of April 25, he allegedly armed himself with multiple weapons and charged straight at a Secret Service checkpoint at the Washington Hilton. As the dinner was underway, Allen allegedly rushed a Secret Service checkpoint at the Washington Hilton while armed with multiple weapons and opened fire, striking a Secret Service officer in his ballistic vest. Agents returned fire and tackled Allen to the ground. The suspect and the injured officer were transported to a hospital. The Secret Service agent is expected to recover. The suspect was apprehended by Secret Service and local authorities for bringing a shotgun, handgun, and multiple knives to the WHCD and shooting one officer. The surveillance footage, which Trump himself later posted on Truth Social, painted a visceral picture. Security footage posted by Trump shows a man sprinting through the metal detectors and past law enforcement, who turned toward him with guns raised. Shortly before his news conference, Trump posted images on Truth Social of the suspect face down on the ground, as well as a clip of a surveillance video showing a man running past security personnel, who then drew their guns and opened fire. Allen, who was seen on surveillance video charging through metal detectors outside the ballroom, where the dinner was taking place, had a record of firearm ownership. He purchased the shotgun used in Saturday's shooting in August 2025. He also owned another semi-automatic pistol, purchased in 2023. Investigators believe Allen traveled from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. by train, with a stop in Chicago, according to acting U.S. Attorney General Todd Blanche. That is a cross-country journey. Thousands of miles, days of travel, all to reach one ballroom on one night, with one apparent goal in mind. Cole Thomas Allen, the suspected gunman who tried to attack the White House Correspondents' dinner Saturday night, left behind what officials are calling a written manifesto, in which he clearly stated he wanted to target officials in the Trump administration. A senior U.S. official told CBS News the suspected gunman had written a manifesto that clearly stated he wanted to target administration officials, and he relayed the document to family members, who in turn relayed it to police. Minutes before the incident, the White House tells CNN of the alleged manifesto, which Allen had sent to his family members. Minutes before the incident Saturday night, the White House said, a White House official said Allen's family then notified police. Also, minutes before the incident took place. Minutes. His own family received the manifesto and alerted police, just minutes before the gunman charged that checkpoint. The suspected shooter's manifesto was specific and outlined a plan, targeting Trump administration officials according to a source familiar with the investigation. The New York Post reports that the manifesto noted that targeted officials were ranked by priority. Authorities found anti-Trump and anti-Christian rhetoric on the suspect's social media accounts. The senior official said, Trump, who spoke during an interview on Fox News this morning about the shooting, added the suspected gunman was a very troubled guy. When you read his manifesto, he hates Christians, that's one thing for sure. He hates Christians, a hatred, and I think his sister or his brother actually was complaining about it. They were even complaining to law enforcement. Allen's sister, Avriana Allen, told investigators in Rockville, Maryland, that her brother had made increasingly radical statements and often spoke about doing something to address issues in the world. She said he had purchased 2 handguns and a shotgun, and that he regularly trained at a shooting range. Family members said he was part of a group called the Wide Awakes and attended a No Kings protest in California. According to federal campaign finance records, Allen donated $25 to Democratic Party PAC Act Blue for Kamala Harris's presidential campaign in 2024. The bullets had barely stopped echoing through the corridors of the Washington Hilton before the entire world began to respond. Inside the venue, the immediate aftermath was a surreal blend of fear, confusion, and in some cases, a peculiar kind of defiance. Trump remained inside the hotel in a secure area. While officials assessed the situation, he departed the Washington Hilton for the White House at approximately 9:45 p.m. after law enforcement requested that all attendees leave the venue. One Secret Service agent said that the area was a crime scene. Trump was rushed off the stage of the Washington Hilton Hotel ballroom seconds after the sounds of gunfire sent attendees diving under their tables. He said he fought like hell to stay at the dinner, where he was set to speak for the first time as president, but that law enforcement had asked him and other administration officials to leave the premises. While President Donald Trump wanted to continue with his speech at the White House Correspondents' Dinner after a gunman charged through the magnetometers, he said Sunday it was the right thing to leave, given U.S. Secret Service protocol. "I really wanted to do it that night," Trump told Fox News on Sunday in a phone interview. "Even if we stayed late into the night, but we did the right thing, and we came back to the White House. We did a news conference and explained what happened." Trump was back at the White House briefing room within the hour, flanked by Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, FBI Director Kash Patel, and other senior officials. U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia Jeanine Pirro said Saturday that the individual who rushed toward the White House Correspondents' Dinner is facing federal charges, with more likely to follow. Pirro said the suspect is currently charged with using a firearm during a crime of violence and assault on a federal officer with a dangerous weapon. Right now, the defendant is being charged with 2 counts, 924C, using a firearm during a crime of violence, using a dangerous weapon, Pirro said during a news conference. Pirro stated, "It is clear, based upon what we know so far, that this individual was intent on doing as much harm and as much damage as he could back at the Hilton." Other moments from the night's chaos were going viral. Alongside Melania's reaction, one man caught the eyes of CNN viewers, identified by reports as CAA's Michael Glantz. Glantz was filmed as part of CNN coverage, with a clip of him tucking into his meal going viral online. Social media users were then quick to share their thoughts on Glantz's approach. Meanwhile, among the attendees, Charlie Kirk's widow Erica was escorted away in tears, and Stephen Miller could be seen rushing his pregnant wife, Katie, away from the area. A separate clip that went massively viral featured White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt after a male suspect was apprehended by Secret Service and local authorities for bringing a shotgun, handgun, and multiple knives to the WHCD and shooting one officer. Leavitt's comment made before the shooting was clipped and spread on social media like wildfire. "This will not help her fight against conspiracy theorists," one ex-user quipped. What had Leavitt said just hours before the shooting? She had joked on camera that there would be shots fired tonight, a figure of speech referring to political jabs. The irony was impossible to ignore. World leaders flooded in with statements of condemnation and relief. World leaders including Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum condemned the attack and expressed their relief that Trump was unharmed. "Violence has no place in a democracy and must be unequivocally condemned," Modi said in a post on X. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said he was relieved that Trump, along with First Lady Melania Trump and others in attendance, were safe. "My thoughts are with all those who have been shaken by this disturbing event," he added. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he and his wife were shocked by the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump and relieved that they are safe and strong. Trump used the moment to push an idea he had been championing for some time, the construction of a new ballroom at the White House itself. I didn't want to say this, but this is why we have to have all of the attributes of what we're planning at the White House. It's actually a larger room, and it's much more secure, Trump told reporters. It's drone-proof. It's bulletproof glass. We need the ballroom. That's why Secret Service. That's why the military are demanding it. They wanted the ballroom for 150 years, for lots of different reasons. But today is a little bit different because today we need levels of security that nobody has ever seen before. We're not going to let anybody take over our society. We're not going to cancel things out because we can't do that. Trump stressed, and he pledged to reschedule the dinner. The event was ultimately canceled as a result of the shooting and chaos that ensued, but President Trump informed reporters, "We're going to reschedule. We're going to do it again. We're not going to let anybody take over our society. We're not going to cancel things out because we can't do that. I wanted to stay tonight. I will tell you, I fought like hell to stay, but it was protocol," they said. There is a cruel, almost literary irony embedded in this entire episode that no screenwriter could have invented. The Washington Hilton, the very hotel where Trump and Melania sat down to dinner, is the same hotel where another sitting president was shot decades earlier. 45 years earlier, John Hinckley Jr. attempted to assassinate Ronald Reagan as he emerged from the same hotel, and it was Reagan's absence from the correspondence dinner after that shooting that set the precedent Trump inadvertently followed for years. When Trump skipped the event in 2017, he became the first sitting president not to attend since 1981, when Ronald Reagan missed it because he was still recovering from the gunshot wound he suffered in an assassination attempt a few weeks earlier. So the Washington Hilton carries a particular kind of weight in presidential history, a weight that Melania sitting at that head table may have been all too aware of when she heard those loud bangs and immediately said, "That's a bad noise." This was not an abstract, distant threat for Melania Trump. Trump has been targeted in multiple assassination attempts, including a near-miss shooting during his 2024 presidential campaign. Thomas Crooks fired 8 shots at Trump during a campaign event in Butler, Pennsylvania, killing one bystander and wounding the then-candidate's right ear before he was shot dead by the Secret Service. When the Butler, Pennsylvania shooting happened in July 2024, the world saw Trump raise his fist, blood on his face, and mouth the word fight. That image became iconic, but behind it, there was a wife who had to watch that footage, process the reality that her husband had come within millimeters of being killed, and then carry on with a campaign schedule as though normality still existed. Then came the second attempt at the golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida, and now, sitting at a table in front of hundreds of cameras, in a ballroom underneath a hotel that already had assassination written into its walls. It happened again. So when the internet watched that video and saw Melania duck under the table, before anybody else at the head table moved, the reaction was split. Some laughed, some joked about her leaving him there, but many others saw something different. They saw a woman who has lived through this before more than once, and whose body reacted before her mind even had time to fully process what was happening. That is not comedy. That is trauma encoded in reflex. Trump said tonight's shooting was rather traumatic for First Lady Melania Trump, and he praised law enforcement for the quick response. There was a lot of action taking place up there very quickly. The word traumatic from Trump was notable. He is not a man given to openly discussing vulnerability, not his own and rarely anyone else's. For him to stand at a podium on live television and specifically single out the emotional impact on his wife, that said something about the weight of the moment. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said on Sunday that law enforcement believes the alleged shooter was targeting Trump administration officials. It does appear that he did in fact have set out to target folks that work in the administration, likely including the president. Blanche added that Allen could absolutely be charged with attempting to assassinate Trump. Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin commended President Donald Trump for showing incredible composure and leadership following the shooting. Thankfully, President Trump, the First Lady, all members of the cabinet, the media, and guests are safe. Mullen said in a post on X, President Trump has displayed incredible composure and leadership tonight. But the composure that captured the world's attention wasn't the president's. It was Melania's 2 words muttered to her husband in the split second before everything went sideways, and a body that moved like it had been through this exact nightmare before. Because it had. This story is still developing, with federal investigators continuing to build their case against Cole Allen and more charges potentially on the way. The dinner has been rescheduled. The political fallout is already being sorted into the usual partisan trenches. But what lingers, what people keep replaying, sharing, and arguing about, is that clip of Melania Trump seated at the most visible table in Washington, recognizing the sound of gunfire before anyone else in the room, and doing the only thing instinct allows, getting down. Whether the internet wants to laugh at it or cry about it, what that video captures is not a punchline. It is a woman who has been here before, and it is, in every sense of the word, heartbreaking.